Have you ever found yourself wondering why a man ignores you, leaving you questioning what's wrong with you? It's easy to think that the problem lies with you, but what if the truth is far deeper than that? What if his indifference speaks volumes about his weaknesses and not your worth at all? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind a man who chooses to ignore you and what it means. You'll learn why his silence may be a sign of insecurity, fear, and an unresolved internal struggle. We'll explore how his need for control and the illusion of being irreplaceable reveals his greatest weaknesses. If you've ever felt unsure about a man's intentions or caught yourself wondering how to make him value you, this video will provide clarity and answers. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your absence is far more powerful than chasing after his attention. You'll gain insights on how to stop being the passive participant in his story and become the woman who radiates confidence, independence, and self-worth. This is the key to not just getting his attention, but commanding his respect. Stick around, your mindset is about to shift, and your approach to relationships will never be the same again. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Doubt gnaws at the heart like nothing else, eating away at your sense of peace, and yet it often hurts more than loss itself. How many women have found themselves trapped in the exhausting cycle of trying to win the attention of a man who deliberately ignores them? The constant barrage of subtle messages, endlessly checking if he's read your texts, or desperately trying to stay visible in his life, all of it seems like a game we think we have to play to earn his attention. But the bitter truth is, every desperate attempt only strengthens his illusion of control over you, leaving you emotionally drained, feeling like you need to prove your worth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The moment you realize that your absence, your self-respect, and your own life are infinitely more valuable than any desperate plea to be seen, the game changes. When he suddenly notices you're no longer texting him, no longer reacting to his posts, no longer seeking to stay in his line of sight, something shifts. A gaping void opens in his mind. The woman he once took for granted, the one he believed would always be available for him, is no longer the same. This moment, this realization, is where his greatest weakness lies. He only feels powerful as long as he's convinced you'll always be there, waiting. But when that belief begins to falter, he's forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that he might have just lost something valuable, something he never truly appreciated until now. Carl Jung's wisdom runs deep here. Everything we reject in others is a mirror of what we cannot accept in ourselves. Often, when a man ignores you, it's not because he's uninterested. On the contrary, it's often because he fears the power you hold over him, a power he doesn't want to face. What happens when he suddenly realizes he's lost that very influence? What happens when the reality of his vulnerability sets in? When a man pulls back, it's natural to wonder if there's something wrong with you. But what if I told you that his pulling away is, in fact, a reflection of his fears and insecurities? Things he's unwilling to confront? As you pull away, he starts feeling an unease he's never felt before. That presence he took for granted? Gone. And suddenly, he's on the receiving end of the silence and emotional distance he once imposed on you. His control begins to slip, and for the first time, he gets a taste of his own medicine. Jung said the human psyche constantly balances between opposites, and when one extreme disappears, the other intensifies. If he once felt secure ignoring you, that feeling starts to crumble, replaced by a growing discomfort he can't ignore. Absence has a strange and powerful effect. It makes him acutely aware of the space you once filled in his life. And that realization, it weighs on him more than he's willing to admit. Soon enough, he sends the first signs of his unease, viewing your stories, reacting to a post, leaving a subtle comment. It's almost like he's trying to tell you, I'm still here. But what's changed? What's shifted is that now he can't be sure you're always going to be there, waiting for him to notice you. The attention he used to receive effortlessly, the sense of significance he felt when you were always there, all of that has now become his greatest vulnerability. As Jung teaches us, the human mind craves balance, and when something constant is suddenly gone, it sets off alarm bells. And that's exactly what you've done to him. The second vulnerability of a man who ignores you is rooted in the security he feels knowing that you're still there, waiting for him, ready to offer your attention and affection whenever he decides to return. Men who thrive on a woman's insecurity do so because they believe they're in control as long as she fears losing them. They think they can remain untouchable, confident that you won't ever leave. But all of that changes the moment you stop showing that desperation. The moment you radiate confidence, the moment your energy shifts from lack to abundance, his whole internal balance starts to falter. Jung's words ring true: what you suppress persists. When a man realizes he's losing control over you, it's like a shock to his system. He suddenly feels something he's never experienced before: uncertainty. The game flips entirely when you strengthen your self-respect and stop chasing after crumbs of his attention. You don't have to run after anyone. A woman who knows herself, who knows her worth, doesn't need to beg for attention. She becomes irresistible, not because she's chasing after validation, but because she's comfortable standing in her power, refusing to put herself in a position of neediness. In that moment, everything changes. You stop waiting for his approval because you've already realized your value. And when you do that, he starts to see you, not as someone he can control, but as someone whose presence he's now desperate to win back. His insecurities and his vulnerability will force him to face the truth. You were never the one who needed to change. It was always him. Once you reach this level of confidence, you don't just reclaim your power, you completely strip him of his. Suddenly, he's left questioning his control. He can no longer be sure he can ignore you whenever he pleases. And with that, a troubling thought begins to creep into his mind. What if she's no longer there when I want to come back? The tables have turned. No longer the one who's waiting, you've shifted the dynamic completely. Before we dive into the third weakness of a man who ignores you, I want to ask you, have you ever been in a situation like this? Did you feel that he was ignoring you because he knew there would be no consequences for his actions? The silence, the withdrawal, it all felt like a power play, and he was walking away unscathed at least. That's what he thought. But that's where the real shift begins. Now, let's move on to the next turning point in this dynamic. When a man hesitates and ignores you, it often comes from a place of arrogance, as if he sees himself as the center of your universe. He feels special and unique, like his presence is essential to your happiness and well-being. But why does he feel this way? Many women unknowingly feed this illusion. They lose themselves in the relationship, giving all their energy to him and forgetting the other areas of their lives that deserve attention. As Carl Jung wisely said, where you direct your energy, that grows. And by pouring all your energy into a man who ignores you, you're not just investing in the relationship, you're strengthening his power over you. But what happens when he suddenly realizes he's not the only focus of your attention? That's when the game shifts. The third vulnerability of a man who ignores you is the feeling of exclusivity he believes he holds over you. He thinks he is the only one that matters, the only one who can make you feel complete. But when you begin to shift your focus away from him and invest in other meaningful relationships, your friends, your family, the people who truly value and enrich your life, everything changes. When you reconnect with those around you, something incredibly powerful happens. Your life gains new momentum and new colors. You realize that he was never your sole source of happiness and never should have been. This doesn't mean you need to find someone new to fill the void he left. On the contrary, it's not about seeking out another man, but about broadening your perspective on the world around you. When you strengthen your social bonds, you create new opportunities and explore new environments. And in doing so, your presence naturally becomes more magnetic. And here's the real turning point for him. The moment he sees you thriving, independent, and no longer entirely focused on him, his belief in his irreplaceability begins to crumble. Suddenly, you're not the woman he thought he could take for granted. Jung said that man fears losing control over what he thought he possessed. And when a man realizes that he's no longer the center of your world, he feels exactly what he once triggered in you: uncertainty. Another deep vulnerability that many men carry, often unconsciously, is their need to be essential to you. They convince themselves that a woman, emotionally or financially, needs them, that without them, you wouldn't be complete. This illusion gives them a false sense of security. But when you show him that your life doesn't revolve around his presence, that you don't need him, but rather choose who deserves a place by your side, everything changes. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Suddenly, you're no longer the needy woman he could ignore without consequence. Instead, you've become the independent woman who doesn't need anyone to complete her. And that's what rattles him. It unsettles him, because now he has to prove his worth if he wants to stay a part of your life. This is where the game truly turns on its head. He can choose to ignore you, but as you continue to grow, evolve, and strengthen your sense of self, he no longer has the same power over you. He'll realize something profound. It's not you who's losing something, it's him. A man's self-esteem is one of his most sensitive spots, and at the same time, one of his greatest weaknesses. It's something that shapes his sense of self, yet it's incredibly fragile, especially when it comes to the validation he receives from others. When he distances himself from you, it's not just about physical space, it's about the emotional distance that's creeping in. Carl Jung famously said, "A person's identity emerges from the projections and reflections they experience through others. When a man feels admired, desired, and valued by a woman, it feeds his ego and bolsters his sense of control. It gives him that self-affirmation he craves, which, in turn, strengthens his emotional armor. But what happens when that source of affirmation suddenly dries up? What happens when you, the one who once held him in high regard, no longer give him your undivided attention, your affection, your validation? That's when things start to unravel. He becomes vulnerable in ways he's not even aware of. The stability he once felt through your admiration begins to vanish, and with it, so does his sense of security. Suddenly, he's left with nothing to cling to. The very thing that fueled his self-esteem has evaporated. And now, he's forced to face a harsh truth. He's no longer the center of your world. And for a man who thrives on that validation, that's a terrifying realization. The real problem here is that many men only truly recognize a woman's presence when she emotionally withdraws. You don't need to physically ignore him or play manipulative games. The real power comes when you stop treating him as something special, when you stop putting him on a pedestal, idealizing his presence as if it were the only thing that could make your world complete. The moment you begin to shift your energy and make him just another person in your world, it hits his psyche in a way that words can't capture. Jung said, "The human subconscious works symbolically," meaning that when a man realizes the woman who once admired him has shifted her attention elsewhere, he feels a subtle but deeply profound loss. And he doesn't know how to explain it to himself. This is one of a man's most powerful vulnerabilities. He gets used to being admired and desired, without having to put in any effort to earn it. The moment that admiration and attention are no longer a given, something inside him shifts. What once felt like a comforting sense of control and security suddenly turns into an unexpected void, one he can't easily fill. And this is where you need to stay one step ahead of him. Rather than begging for his attention or trying to prove your worth, you do something far more powerful. you withdraw that energy. You redirect it to yourself. You become the woman who doesn't depend on anyone to feel extraordinary. And that is the moment he starts to realize that he's lost something he always took for granted. The tables have turned, and now he's the one wondering if it's too late to get back what he thought he could always count on. The secret to truly influencing his self-esteem lies in the principle of reciprocity. Jung often said that relationships are mirrors. If you're constantly giving him admiration, desire, and attention, but he's not giving the same back to you, he will never feel the need to value you in return. If you feed his confidence, if you give him trust, affection, and emotional investment, but aren't receiving the same in return, you're allowing him to take from you without ever acknowledging your worth. This imbalance is why so many women end up frustrated and emotionally drained. They give everything in the hope that one day they'll recognize and reciprocate their love and devotion. But the truth is, a man who feels entitled to your affection without putting in the effort to earn it will never truly appreciate you. He'll take, and you'll be left feeling depleted and unappreciated. That's why, in the long run, you must stop giving without receiving. You must stop allowing him to take your energy, your attention, and your love without offering the same in return. When you stop bending over backward for a man who can't give you the same in return, you stop reinforcing his sense of entitlement. Instead, you make room for a relationship built on mutual respect, admiration, and balance. When you show him that you won't settle for anything less, that's when he'll be forced to see your true worth. And only then, when the dynamic is real and reciprocal, will he truly appreciate what he almost lost. The big turning point in any relationship comes when you fully understand that the way a man treats you is a direct reflection of the value he assigns to you in his life. If he believes he can ignore you, thinking you'll always be there available, waiting for just a crumb of his attention, he'll never fear losing you. Carl Jung explained that humans have an unconscious urge to test others' boundaries, to see just how far they can push without facing consequences. And many men, without even realizing it, do exactly that. In relationships, they pull back, they ignore, and they show indifference because they know deep down that you'll stay no matter what. You're the constant in their life, and that gives them a false sense of security. But what happens when that certainty disappears? When you stop giving him the validation he's used to, when you take away the security he once took for granted, suddenly his ego begins to waver. He's so accustomed to the idea that your attention is an automatic thing, something he can have without any effort. But what happens when that attention is no longer a given? What happens when he realizes that he must work to earn it again? That's when the true shift begins. He starts feeling something completely unfamiliar, uncertainty. Jung said the human psyche thrives on patterns and predictability. When a woman who once adored him suddenly changes her behavior, when she pulls back and stops waiting around, a man who thought he had control experiences deep, unsettling unease. It's a feeling he can't ignore. And that's when he realizes the game has changed. Now, he has to prove himself. That's the fundamental difference between a woman who is valued and one who is ignored. The woman who is valued knows her attention is a gift, not an obligation. She doesn't chase after anyone. She doesn't beg for their approval, and she certainly doesn't settle for less than she deserves. She stands in her worth, and her worth is not negotiable. She knows that the right person will treat her as she deserves, and she will not accept anything less. When a man senses he could lose her, when he realizes that she is no longer just a constant presence in his life, he begins to rethink his behavior. His need for control, the power he once held, begins to shift into a desperate desire to be accepted again. But here's the key. By this point, you're no longer waiting for his approval. You've already become the woman who decides who deserves a place by her side. And that shift, that powerful mindset change, is the catalyst that makes him see you in a whole new light. It forces him to acknowledge your true worth something he never truly valued until now, because he always assumed you would just be there. Once you make this mental shift, once you realize you don't need anyone's approval to feel validated, everything changes. His perception of you changes. And more importantly, your perception of yourself changes. You're not the one waiting for him to choose you. You've already chosen yourself, and that's what makes you truly irresistible. That's when you start attracting the respect, love, and commitment you deserve. Because, in the end, the most powerful thing a woman can do is not wait for someone to recognize her value, but to recognize her value on her own. And once you do that, no one, not even the man who once ignored you, will be able to take that power away from you again. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. But there's one crucial point here that cannot be ignored. For this change to be real, you have to live it. It's not about pretending to be indifferent or playing psychological games. It's about truly understanding that you never should have had to fight for a man's attention in the first place. The biggest mistake a woman can make is holding on to the hope that one day a man will suddenly recognize her worth, while she hasn't yet recognized it in herself. Carl Jung's wisdom speaks directly to this. What we accept in others mirrors what we accept in ourselves. If you're settling for less than you deserve, if you keep investing your time, energy, and emotions into someone who doesn't reciprocate that investment, you're sending a powerful message to your subconscious that you're not enough. And that belief, that deeply ingrained feeling of being unworthy, needs to be broken now before it continues to shape your relationships and your life. Now, picture this. Imagine the moment when a man realizes you no longer need him to feel amazing about yourself. Imagine the confusion that spreads across his mind as he sees that the control he once had over you is slipping away. That's when the real fear sets in, fear of losing you, fear of no longer mattering, and the realization that he might have made the biggest mistake of his life. That's when the power shifts. You're the one in control now, not him. So let me ask you, have you ever observed this dynamic in your life? Have you ever seen how a man's behavior changes when you stop seeking his approval and start focusing on your self-worth? At the end of the day, the most important question here isn't about him, it's about you. Why did you settle for so little when you deserve so much more right from the start? Jung wisely said, "What we don't confront within ourselves reflects in our outer lives." Have you spent too much time wondering about what he feels, what he wants, and what he thinks, while your self-respect takes a back seat? If that's the case, maybe it's time to ask yourself the most crucial question of all. Where's that same devotion and respect when it comes to you? Did you ever put your self-worth in his hands, waiting for him to affirm your value, when it should have always been something you recognized in yourself? The biggest mistake a woman can make is believing she has to prove her worth to someone who should have seen it on their own from the start. The truth might sting a little, but it's also incredibly liberating. If a man feels he can ignore you without any real consequences, he will never value you the way you deserve. And if he thinks he can just waltz back into your life at any moment and find you unchanged, waiting, and available, then he will never fear losing you. You are the one who teaches others how you deserve to be treated. You set the boundaries of what you'll accept and what you won't. If you haven't been valued in the past, then it's time to completely change the dynamics of your relationships and refuse to settle for anything less than the respect and love you deserve. The truth is, deep down, this entire issue isn't really about him. It's about how you see yourself. Jung's words are a powerful reminder. Everything we attract mirrors what we carry within. If you keep attracting men who ignore you, who distance themselves, who don't prioritize you in the way you deserve, then it's time to look inward. When did you start accepting this kind of treatment? When did you start believing that you had to fight for someone's attention, for their love, for their validation? Because a woman who knows her worth, a woman who is truly aware of her value, never has to beg for notice. She simply shines on her own. And that, my dear, is what makes her irresistible. Not because she's begging for attention, but because she commands it by simply being herself. And here's the key point. The man who's ignoring you today may appear confident on the surface, but deep down, he's terrified. He's afraid of losing control, afraid of no longer being the center of your world, afraid of realizing that he may have squandered the attention of an extraordinary woman. And if you take everything you've learned here and apply it, if you strengthen your self-awareness, become emotionally independent, and refuse to accept anything less than you deserve, he will feel that shift. And in that moment, he will have only two choices. Either he learns to value you, or he finally acknowledges that he never had the power over you that he thought he did. But let's pause and ask ourselves, do you want a man who only realizes your worth when he fears losing you? Is that the kind of recognition you've been waiting for, someone only valuing you when they're on the verge of losing you? It's time to make a change. It's time to shift your perspective and understand that you deserve someone who chooses you willingly, without games, without tests, and certainly without conditions. A woman who knows her worth doesn't waste her time chasing someone who pulls away. She knows that true love can't be forced. It flows naturally. And if you're in a constant battle to get his attention, it might just be time to stop fighting that fight altogether and start putting yourself first. What you've learned today goes beyond simply making a man feel your absence. It's about becoming the woman who never has to beg for attention again. It's about no longer waiting for a text, a sign, or some form of validation to feel worthy. It's about living your life unapologetically, because you know that self-love is what attracts all the good things, the things that truly matter. When you make this shift, when you focus on your growth and energy, the entire world will respond. And that man who once thought he could ignore you, he'll suddenly find himself scrambling, desperate to reclaim what he lost. So, here's one final question. Do you want to keep standing in the same place, waiting for a man to finally see your worth? Or do you want to become the woman who no longer has to wonder, because she already knows exactly who she is? The answer and the choice are yours. At the end of the day, your true strength doesn't lie in how others perceive you. It lies in how you perceive yourself. And once you grasp that powerful truth, you'll never settle for anything less than you truly deserve. As we wrap up today's video, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned so far. You've heard about the power of self-awareness, emotional independence, and the importance of knowing your worth. You've learned that true value comes from within, and that when you stop chasing validation from others, you become the woman who commands respect and love naturally. So, what has resonated with you the most? What's the one thing you've learned today that you will actively bring into your life and practice moving forward? I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share with us what stood out to you the most and how you plan to use this knowledge to create positive change in your life. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a comment below, give us a like, and don't forget to share it with someone who might need to hear this message too. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you can continue to get empowering content like this. Thank you for watching. And remember, your true power lies in how you see yourself. Until next time, stay strong, stay confident, and never settle for less than you deserve.